Okay, let me just get round to the chair. Okay.
Okay, clap. I think this is the one where I have to say we were going to talk about Simon, I just want to stop you there regarding M&E commerce, which we know, you and I, we really need to highlight here as to a great tool for retailers in Africa to start using properly. But let's just go back to this whole issue. We've got international majors coming in here. Are there any South African majors, any South African retailers who you think are good enough on their own, without the assistance of a Walmart or a Tesco, to become a global force themselves? Are there any South African good news stories in the retail industry?
Well, I think South African retailers are very good generally. Let me make that point clear. I mean, I think South African retailing standards have been good, and there's been retail managers and personnel have been exported worldwide. But as far as retailers that have retail brands that have got really going on the global scale, which I think is what you're asking me, there's one in particular that I think really understands the African market and learns and goes forward and is doing it very well. And I'm really keen to see how well they develop across Africa. I mean, they have been doing it now for a while, and I can see that business getting into the Gulf in the Middle East, and even getting into the Far East with their brand, because you know they do understand their consumer market well.
I've been paying attention. You haven't mentioned the name.
Well, it's a certain company headed up by Mr. Basson, and I'm not looking for a job, Whitey. Don't worry about that. But I see them as the as really the guys that understand their consumer and are doing it really well. Not to say the others aren't. I think they set standards, but I think there's nothing that Tesco, Walmart, Carrefour could teach ShopRite when it comes to trading in Africa, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot more that ShopRite could teach any one of those three.
And what about the South African retailer who's known for? Everybody in South Africa is known for the phrase "ons maak plan," but there are some unique qualities about retailers and suppliers generally in the retail industry in South Africa, are there not?
Yeah, there are. I mean, there's been some good stories come out of South Africa, and good people who head up retail organisations in other parts of the world. I mean, there's been good South African retailers heading up places like Harrods and Macy's, and there's businesses in Middle East. The Middle East is an extension of South Africa these days, what I've seen of it. But yes, South African recipes are working well in other parts of the world, and it would be good to see some of the South African brands, really flourishing in these parts of the world.
Are there opportunities then, Simon, seriously, for somebody who's coming up in the retail industry? Maybe he's only a junior or a middle manager right now. Are there real opportunities, particularly in countries in areas such as the Gulf, for South Africans to do well?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of South African retailers actually in the Gulf as we speak now. I know there is, and heading up organisations and doing very well out there, as there are in I come across South Africans in Malaysia heading up hypermarket chains there, and in China, the Gulf. Certainly there's no shortage of people there. I see them in Australia. There's a lot of South Africans everywhere, and there's plenty over here where I am as well.
Are there some countries in the world which you think South Africa and South Africans can learn from, particularly in business development? Countries that perhaps we're not thinking about that we should focus on?
I think there's two elements of where South Africa needs to go if it wants to learn. certainly when it comes to technology and the latest technology in retailing, the E and the M commerce and the things that we're going to demonstrate a little bit later, those are things that are certainly coming out of the USA and out of the UK and Europe in particular. And yes, I mean, obviously there's a lot of benefit, not just South Africans, but other parts of the world also can benefit from that. But I think because the recipe works well in Europe or in Brazil or in Malaysia, the whole recipe I'm talking about of retail development and standards, and in terms of logistics, product movement and pricing and promoting and everything else, South Africa's unique. Is, you know, it's a very unique environment when it comes to trading. It's had a very different upbringing to many parts of the world, and there's a mixed bag of consumer out there that has to be looked after. So it's a South African development tool that has to be applied to how one gets better in that market. The M-commerce, mobile phones. I mean, mobile phones are growing around the world. Mobile smartphones are growing around the world. More and more people are going onto the internet in all walks of life. I'm sure it's happening in South Africa like it is in other parts of the world. In fact, I read an article where the head of a mobile network in Africa made mention of, I think he said there was something like 4.5 million people already linked onto the net in South Africa. Now, don't quote me on that. That's just a figure I seem to remember hearing. But the point is, there's opportunity now to tap into customers like this and actually start seeking what they require. You know, we've got to learn quickly and make it happen. Not even 8 months ago in the UK, we were talking about Facebook was really just a social network. It had nothing to do with business, really. It was there for playing on and talking and sharing photographs and videos or whatever. It wasn't used for business circles. In 8 months, it's significantly changed. Virtually every company's got their own Facebook page. Trading is starting to happen on Facebook. Skype's joining Facebook. It's an opportunity to reach your consumer, and you know, those consumers are in Africa. I'm sure there are lots of people on Facebook in all walks of life, just as there are people that have got mobile phones. And it's the uniqueness of how African retailers pick up with these modern mechanisms to reach those customers. Because Tesco or Walmart can't teach them that. That's something they've got to learn in South Africa. And you know, the technology is here. It's already here. There's no reason why everybody can't be online anywhere in the world and start purchasing something. There's nothing. It's there. It can happen. And it's up to people to make it work here.
Right, stop tape. It's 9 minutes. We're going to go on now to the final question, which is M&E commerce. And obviously you need some time to develop that.